Thanks for joining us. This is our monthly edition of our Kentucky K-12 CIOs and EdTech Leaders Webcast. I'm David Couch with the Kentucky Department of Education. Again, thanks for joining us today. This is our way to give some updates going on at state level and as well as get input of what's going on at the district level. These are kind of hot topics we got going on. We also have, I think, 6 poll questions today that we would like your feedback on. And if you can take a look at the summary notes that we send every month, we also share those results with you statewide. So you can get a feel for, when you answer your question, just how your answer stacks up from people answering that from across the state. So please participate in that when those come up. So let's start out with the first item on the agenda, which is update on the Kentucky K-12 EdTech related activity that's happening in the legislative session that's going on right now. I'll start out with the Kentucky Education Technology System KETS additional budget request. We call those ABRs if you hear those terms. And within that ABR, we asked for additional funding for Infinite Campus to continue paying for campus learning and registration across the state. We asked for funding to help us out with cybersecurity defense. We asked for money to help out, additional money for the KETS offer assistance that go to districts. We asked for funds to help restore the cut to the IT Academy, which gives out certifications for students that has reached its maximum and is part of a budget cut several years ago that impacted other parts of KETS. And a new one on there is artificial intelligence. A group of us met with Senator Givens this past week. Was this past week or was it the end of last week? I guess the end of last week. Yeah, I guess we got back. So about artificial intelligence, Senator Givens was the one that helped us put the Kentucky K-12 IT Academy together and the funding for it, and got to speak to him about that. He's been a great champion for education in general, but definitely with technology component, and has a great interest in artificial intelligence. So we talked to him about a proposal, helps out with artificial intelligence professional development across the state, taking advantage of some networks that we have out there. Marla, let you talk about that a little bit. You want to talk about it a little bit now?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think we've been able to share with different groups, including with our superintendents on the statewide superintendents webcast that also occurred last week. A proposal that we have in place. It does require some additional budget, but it's a professional learning network for AI in action, AI growth across the state that would hit classrooms, would hit school level leadership and district level leadership. It's I think a well thought out proposal that leverages the coaching model that we know absolutely works from a professional learning standpoint. And working with the networks that we already have in place, including content area networks, math, science, ELA, and leveraging artificial intelligence usage, being empowered with safe, secure, and responsible uses of AI in our classrooms and in our schools. Really nice part of about that is that proposal jumps off of, as David mentioned, the additional budget requests that we have for KETS, and working with some foundational pieces that we already have in place. So it's not all new, it's just the ability to accelerate. One of those pieces that we wanted to mention today and make sure you're aware of is a professional learning course that will launch in the next 2 weeks that is all about the AI empowered teacher. And this is a course that will launch through the Kentucky Learning Hub. That's the KY Learning Hub. That is our platform for all professional learning, sponsored by the Kentucky Department of Ed. That we're very excited about the course. It's a pretty large effort. The content's really good. The structures are good. We see it as a foundational and base level kind of entry point for teachers to start to engage more in the safe, secure, and responsible use of AI. So, David, that's kind of that proposal that we have in place, and we'll look forward to hearing more about that.
So the budget process is takes a bit, goes through a lot of different wickets, and it actually goes all the way to the very last day of legislative session to make a determination when you have certain members of the House and Senate and the governor's office and some others that meet together, small group, to really work out the final disagreements maybe between the House and Senate. Right now, the Senate did not approve any additional budget requests, my understanding, for any part of state government, just not K, the agency, but no part of state government. So we'll see what the Senate looks like. They have some financial proposals. So obviously there's some things to be worked out. Like I say, is you just keep on swinging away, keep on using the opportunity to educate folks on the importance of what it means to get that funding and what it means not to get it. And definitely I took that opportunity last week when meeting with Senator Givens and anyone else that I meet with. And I hope you all, through your superintendents and others, keep on keeping it on the forefront of importance. To talk about the session itself on EdTech related legislation, probably the top of that piece of legislation has passed the House that has an impact on our Kentucky K-12 internet service, I think, in a positive way. What are the parts of it it helps out with is there's potential in it to help us. We use Zayo we use Zayo, formerly Education Networks of America, for our internet service for our KD internet hubs, and obviously districts use their providers to connect to that. But we are reaching a part with the Kentucky Communication Network Authority where they were not approving for us to connect districts the same way we're connecting other districts. Right now, we have about 40 districts that are connected a little bit differently through Zayo than the rest of 130. So this legislation gives promise and opportunity for those other 40 to be connected just like everyone else. And any district that's changing their KD Internet Hub location, it ups the opportunity for them to be connected like anyone else. And because there's pretty big financial differences, connecting a different way and operational differences, and you lack consistency. So we are for that piece of legislation. And it has passed the House, and it's very high odds of passing the Senate. So we'll keep you informed of that. Another piece of legislation that we are closely tracking, it's around college admissions awareness and student social security numbers, interacting with CPE, KIA, Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, and Kentucky Stats. We already do a lot of data collection with students. We're really trying to make sure that student privacy is maintained and taking advantage of things that are already in place versus building new systems and maintaining those. So we're closely making sure we're trying to educate legislators on that bill being proposed and trying to protect student privacy and not building duplicative systems. So we'll keep you informed of that one as it goes down the trail. And the other one that stands out to me, and this is the importance of districts turning in digital readiness every year and technology activity reports. There was some legislation that was around Kentucky K-12 EdTech inventory and repairs and replacement. And the good news is, we were able to meet with that legislator and educator on all the existing things that we already have in place for decades. And it turned out to be a positive kind of thing to educate her on the kind of things we already have in place. She's a really new legislator. So it showed the importance of having that data and good quality data available to present during the legislative session. So I think that's worked out. The other part that looks like it's very promising is the Kentucky Education Educator Placement System for funding for that. We have a system now, and it looks like it's positive that there may be funding for that, and we'll talk later about what that means and doesn't mean. If that goes through the finish line, and assessment accountability is something we follow closely because of the summative testing, and that appears that to be going to pass in some form. They're still debating what's in it, what's not in it, but that's a big piece of legislation. So Lisa, anything education technology related that I missed that's major that I need to add?
No, David, I think you covered them all. I was putting the numbers down as you spoke to them, and I think everything that you brought up is the ones that we are covering as priorities for education technology.
Did you mention House Bill 44, the Kentucky First Robotics?
I did.
Yeah.
I we talked about that. All these, the ones I just mentioned, we talked in the KD leadership team meeting, including that one. I'm not sure that one's going to make it across the finish line in its current state. So the robotics one. All right. I would also say it works, and I'm going to go meet with my equivalents in other states next Monday through Wednesday. When part of legislation was proposed, they'll say where they're doing X, Y, and Z in other states, and the really nice part about having a relationship of my equivalents in other states, I can call them directly and really find out what's going on. And there were two separate pieces of these legislation. Talked to my equivalent in other states, and they told me directly what was going on, which allowed me to address what really those states were doing and not doing in comparison to Kentucky. So I mentioned that, for the plus side of just staying connected with other states, but I also mentioned that in the context of the upcoming CAST conference, of the importance of you building relationships not only in your immediate region, but across the state. This is one of the purposes of the CIO Summit, is to kind of intermingle different districts from different parts of the state that normally wouldn't interact with, so they have the ability to, in certain situations, is give them a holler and say, how's that really playing out in your district when they hear that. So up next is our Kentucky K-12 data systems update. I know we have 2 poll questions related to that with campus learning and online registration. So I don't know if we can open those up and let folks start responding to it. But Dee Dee, I'll turn this portion over to you.
Thanks, David. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple of things today. Just a reminder to folks, I know you're starting to think about budgets for next year. It's really, don't forget campus learning and online registration. If you've been you've adopted those tools into your schools, KDE's funding runs out this year. Now, the disclaimer out there is we're hoping that we get this ABR approved. And as David mentioned, there's not an ABR that's in any of the budgets as of today. We probably got closer this year than we've gotten in the past, but we're not overly optimistic on this. So to play it safe, we recommend that you do budget for this, because there will not be state funding without that to cover those tools going forward. You can reach out to Infinite Campus to get a quote. It averages about $2, but there's a minimum, and then there's a maximum thresholds in there. So those impact it district to district. So you can reach out to Infinite Campus for a cost for going forward to make sure that money is in the budget if you want to retain those. So the 2 questions that David mentioned about online registration and campus learning, we're really trying to get a feel for, do you know yet? You may not. If you're going to retain those, we'd like to hear that. If you feel like you're not going to be able to, we'd like to know if that's budget related, or if it's not budget related, there's some other reason. And if you don't know yet, there's an option for that too. So we appreciate the feedback and you completing those questions and answers. The other thing I wanted to mention, and it's not a school data services thing, although we've got our own piece of it, but KDE's going over and doing a website modernization. David's doing a lot of work on this. We know that some of you all are the highest users of our web pages. If you would like to provide us any feedback, we'd love to have that. So provide us comments in there, anything that you maybe struggle with, or things you'd like to see, or accolades and things that we're doing really well. It'd be great to hear back from you on those. We do have a few trainings coming up. The week of April 13th is going to be a busy week. We've got user group trainings that Infinite Campus holds regionally that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That Thursday, we got our online end of year training. And then on Friday, Infinite Campus will have the same content that they're using for their regional meetings in an online format on that Friday. So a lot going on. I don't have locations yet for that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday meetings. Lisa DeGarris will be sending that out. So there are, we also reference a couple of trainings that the Department of Education, Federal Department of Education has available, which on data security best practices, incident response, and then transparency and vetting education technology. So we do take advantage of those, and we make those available on our cases webpage. So if you want more information, take a look there.
Dee Dee, let me interrupt you a second. Well, looks like you were trying to, I can't tell you how important these poll questions are to us to share with groups to get a feel for how things, and it looks like, I just asked the audience, the first one that I think we released was about campus learning. to making sure you're going and filling both of these out. We have a couple others. It's just so important, especially during this time where it says there's no funding, to try to give a feel for folks how this is going to play out. And this is probably one of the situations financially. We talk about it. Sometimes there are exceptions, but the discount we get by buying in mass does not transfer over when districts buy it individually. This is one of the big downsides. So typically you may be paying 40 to 60% more when you're buying individually. That's true in any kind of basics of economics. Of buying in mass in a certain period of time drives down costs. I mean, you lose that ability to affect that. So districts will definitely be paying more per student than we pay. That's true across almost every product line that you see over the long haul. So, like I said, there may be exceptions to that when you're doing something statewide to the scale where this many are using it, this percentage using it. This is where you have the big drops versus maybe you have a very small number using it. So,
right. We'd love to continue to be able to fund it if anybody can influence their legislatures to include that ABR, because that's the value that we see in being able to do that.
Yeah. It's never too late to give it back, guys. Anyone that's done anything in life, you never give up. You never give up till it really proves that it's not there, and the finish line is across the finish line. So keep battling away.
Just to help moderate a bit, a question from William in the chat: is there a discount on the price in reflection of the state student information system contract, or is it more of kind of sticker price?
It's more a sticker price. They have actually some minimum fees associated with it, as well as some maximums. Overall, it's about double what KD has been able to negotiate for it statewide. Not exactly double, but I mean it's close to it.
And because those additional tools and modules are not part of were not originally part of the core product, right?
That's correct. Our contract did not include that. Our fee, those things weren't even around in 2006 when we were negotiating a contract at KDE. And we would like to negotiate into the contract. It's just having the reoccurring funds to be able to do that is where we struggle.
Good question.
Make sure I want you to say what you said. You have to have a guaranteed amount of money to hand over to drive down costs. So this is economics and business 101. To drive down costs, you have to have a guaranteed X dollar amount to drive it down. And if you don't have that guarantee, you don't have that driving down, which we don't have, because if it's zeroed out, there is no funding to replace that. All right, thank you. Let's go on to our next topic. We're in the final prep stages for the Kentucky K-12 CIO Summit that occurs on 11 March. Coming up here at Kentucky Association School Technology Conference in Louisville. Of course, it goes from 11 March to 13th. That's a wonderful event. We appreciate our partnership through all these years with school districts and through KISTI and Outcast. And I'm very appreciative of us allowing us to kick off that event, bring the EdTech leaders and CIOs together for the summit. Very proud that we're the only district that does, the only state that does that, and has continued to do that. So Lisa, can you give some backdrop of some information we want to make sure they're aware of? And also I want to talk about some potential topics that we're going to cover with you. So go ahead and give that backdrop.
Okay, sure. So registration is currently open. It is scheduled to close, and registration for the CIO Summit session specifically, not the CAST conference. So we're closing that tomorrow at close of business. Right now, we have 133 districts that have responded to that registration. 7 of them are saying that they will not be able to attend this year. So right now we have 126 districts that have responded, and that equates to 21 tables so far. So we're right about where we normally are.
Whoa, what was that?
I don't know. I'll try it again. We're right about where we normally are. And this year, the time is quite a bit different. We normally meet in the morning and end with lunch provided by the CAST leadership. This year, the time is noon to 2:20. But there's nothing going on in Ballroom D, which is where we will be meeting, same as last year, same space. So they have given us the green light to go ahead and open the room at 11:30 so that if you are free, you can come on and get registered and come in and enjoy your lunch prior to the session starting. Some people will still be coming in. We expect that, but then we'll be able to kick off right at noon and get going. So, is there anything else, David, that you'd like me to cover about that?
Well, I would just say if you're going to have lunch, make sure you understand is we're going to have pretty strict table assignments. So you will be shooed away if you are sitting at a table still at noon and trying to huddle up with folks that you have the whole conference to do that. So we want you to really work with some folks that maybe you don't see on a daily basis. So you may want to sit at your original table, but if you sit down and eat, which is great, even if you sit down with them a short period of time, then go to your original table. But you will be shooed away to your table you're supposed to be at when it's at noon, and the table
we'll
leads will have that responsibility.
Yeah, we'll do a 5-minute warning for that type of thing. So. Thank you,
Now, the
David.
tables we usually have, we have 21. I want to say it's, I've seen 23, 25 table sizes. So, there's X number of folks that, as anything, kind of wait the last minute to register. So we're hoping to get that back up to those numbers that we normally have seen over the past year or so, which normally happens, with folks kind of wait till the last second. So obviously we like 100%, but we've been in the 83%, 85% over the years, and that's great feedback to give us and great credibility of getting a feel with the pulse of the state. I do appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from of course, the top 5 at the end of the year from our staff and from our districts. Even the feedback we've gotten for topics that we want to make sure we cover. Obviously, one of our big focuses is what's really important over the next 6 to 12 months that we need your feedback on. And we have a long history of this summit of the feedback. You can tell we've been listening to it because it affects what we do in our actions. And so this is an important part. We're just not listening, but we're also going to be taking action upon it. So we're trying to pick some items that are both important, important to us to try to get resolved over the next 6 to 12 months. And I know we talked about this in our OET leadership team meeting yesterday, and was going to appreciate everyone that provided this information. So a couple of items areas, and we're still fine tuning what the topics will be. Typically, we have 3 main topics, and I think we're going to have 2 questions for each one of those topics maximum. But the different areas we're looking for is I put in big chunks. One would probably be on the student and the teacher side. That's going to be one chunk of it. Probably artificial intelligence is going to be another chunk of it. I can tell you that the feedback we've gotten in these summits has been incredibly valuable during the course of the year, because there's big studies that people want districts' feedback and their thoughts on it. And when I go, and nobody's name's listed in it specifically, but here's the big themes that we got from this event. They just stopped the studies. They stopped trying to send out a bunch of stuff because they have real-time feedback from a very high percentage of districts. And it just helps us too in our what we're doing. So there'll be some flavor of AI in it. Be some new stuff in it that we've not asked before. I know one of the things is just kind of how do you all use it? You all use it daily in what you're doing, along with what's happening in your districts now and what you anticipate going forward. We're also trying to incorporate, for example, I'll give you a hot topics coming up is the academic standards for technology, computer science, and library media. Those are some things happening in a very short time frame. And obviously, there's a great interest in including an AI flavor to it. But also, what do we need to really update within those environments? And also, we know AI is going to touch some other academic topics like math, science, and really just about anything. Also interested in the student voice, and I would say the teacher voice too, Marty. For years we've been collecting data on them, and what are we doing to really make sure that that's a good experience for them? We're maximizing the investments, and what are you all doing to really keep up with what's used a lot, what's not used a lot, and what should be continuing to get funding. Any other aspects on the student voice piece before I go into some of the other topics that you all discussed about?
Yeah, I think David, and I'll just another plug. If you're still trying to work plans out, logistically trying to get to CAST and the CIO Summit, you know, it is incredibly important for us to capture your feedback. We use it. I know that you already mentioned, but something specific around topics that we've shaped and driving direct action is extremely important. So, for example, what we're doing in our education technology plans has been very helpful in our General Assembly. We've been able to work in topics that are instructive. They help educate our decision makers based on our education technology plans, as well as digital readiness and the technology activity report. So ideas around student and teacher voice moving forward are going to be extremely important to help us understand what you are finding value in school at classroom level, what we're funding, what we're putting our money towards, and really refining to the technologies that are helping most. And so that's going to be incredibly important for us moving forward, especially as there's we're seeing a trend and a flavor of this pull away from some education technology initiatives due to lack of understanding value. And so we're helping to help, lead and drive that conversation. And a student and teacher voice component becomes extremely important. One final thing, David, I'll mention. We've just seen the results, and you locally have access to results from the teacher impact survey, and our teachers are sharing their perception and thought on a couple of really focused technology related questions. And so being able to use that in the right way and empower our education technology decision making will be helpful to us moving forward. So your voice there could likely help drive that topic at the CIO Summit.
Yeah, I think the key part you kind of going for anyone is this adding value, right? What metrics are you using to show it adds value? I know part of the discussions that I have to have with folks is making a distinction between smartphones and social media and what we do in education technology, because generally the public is confused about that, which means
technology for entertainment versus technology for learning. So we're situating that conversation at a leadership table.
So, for example, districts have had long ability to limit social media. Mm-hmm. And this is just not the law that passed last year. And through an internet content management system, the school district, the teacher can select the content they don't want to come through the internet service for the district acquired devices. But obviously, when the student has their own purchased smartphone and their own purchased internet service, making that distinction, because I frequently have to do that. So I do think that's going to be on our mind, and I think we're all would good amount of folks would agree of the emphasis on limiting smartphone usage and social media of youth, and the plus sides of making sure that's they maintain the proper focus at the proper time on the things they should in the educational environment. But making the distinction between a smartphone and social media, them just flipping through stuff, and the kind of tools that we have in education technology. So I think those are in there, and how they relate to the academic standards is important too. And we'll talk about what AI is. That's one of the topics that we'll have in there, and that can go a lot of different directions. But that's been incredibly valuable. I saw a couple others we talked about that we got feedback on and while this is not a competition, this would be one of those, instead of a big idea for this particular topic, what is the best, most important thing that you're working on at your school and district level from education technology perspective, and how's it moving the needle forward? I think that'd be greatly educational across all districts. So this is maybe one that we don't list district names, but we would list the feedback we got around the table for this one. It appears to be a good one.
And this is really inspired from some statewide project work that we're engaged in now, where just a few years ago at the CIO Summit, we heard loud and clear a few of our districts that were very progressive in the interoperability space. And we were able to capture that, jump on it, and really push on how can we help all districts with this work? And so having an opportunity and a topic that's wrapped around, from a technology perspective, what are you super proud of? What's moving the needle for you? And being able to capture that is something that we're extremely interested in.
And I would just thought too, if in the chat or just directly, if there's other big topics you want to make sure this is a good time to bring them to us. Here's a good topic, I think, is simplify and subtract. And I know with our staff, Marla, you talked about this some of that concept and how some of the things that we're doing, even the Q's levels, allowed us to kind of have districts understand the plus side of moving down that direction.
Yeah, the concept of simplify and subtract is really something that we've it kind of positions as a higher concept with a lot of projects and initiatives that we have going on. We've pulled it from the top 5 over the last couple of years to recognize really fine-tuning our energy and effort. And so when we think about technology operations, efficiencies, certainly cloud and brokered services have helped us strategize around simplifying and subtracting. When we look at the technology activity report, you are speaking loud and clear through that in a simplify and subtract moment. Now, certainly when we have to tighten our belts and when there's we spoke about the pandemic effect of the funding cliff, and we're working through that now. When we do not have enough funds available or as many funds available, we start to really fine tune what it is we're putting our dollars into, what we're funding. And so that idea of simplifying and subtracting is extremely important, not just from a strategy perspective or initiative perspective, but also a funding perspective. And so we've identified some really important opportunities that you are leading in your district that fit tightly in that big concept of simplifying and subtracting. I know we've spoken at the regional level about those ideas a little bit, but pulling together as a statewide leadership team in the summit could be a valuable topic for us as well.
Last year, we spent a lot of time on cybersecurity. And we even talked yesterday, does that need to be there again? Even some suggestions about how you do it with all the phishing kind of things. And some of these topics may be better because we can't have them all. I think CAST is set up for us to have 2 days worth of these things, and they're all worthwhile. We may save X number of these topics we find valuable to do during a special webcast, or it's not like this one. It's just a webcast to get input on that on that area. Definitely cybersecurity is one. That's a big one that's only going to get bigger and not go away. But we did spend a lot of time with that one and then implement a lot of those. Obviously, Q's effort is addressing a lot of those, that input that we got going forward about standardizing and implementing that in a consistent way across the state. Some of the things that we're doing that were previously optional, that because of cybersecurity and this big avalanche, we're trying to do something about it.
And David, just one more mention and one more plug. No other state does this, and we've been able to identify that some of our best work in partnership with you as EdTech leaders has, we planted the seeds that were planted at the CIO Summit, and so we're able to take those ideas, learn from you, get your feedback. All feedback is great feedback. Doesn't necessarily always have to be positive, but it's instructive, and I think the feedback is said in a critical lens, through a critical lens, but in a constructive way, is something that we've been able to share with other states that you help us do, and we work together in partnership. And so if you've never been to the summit and you've thought about coming this year as an EdTech leader and Chief Information Officer, really would love you to be there. Getting us close to 100% of our EdTech leaders there is our target. That's our goal. We want to learn from you, but then also at the CIO Summit, it is you learning shoulder to shoulder next to other EdTech leaders with larger districts than yours, with smaller districts than yours that have had to simplify and subtract in extreme ways, for example. So just one more plug to get to the summit.
Yeah, the tables to build relationships. I can just tell you that stick. So it is valuable just in that aspect of you now have
Right.
added, 4 or 5 people that you can, you spent some time with, kind of can see their perspective and you can reach out to. So if nothing else, it's valuable in relationship building, which, the key to life, I think, is relationships, by the way. So that's a key aspect of doing that.
I had one, I just, sorry, but I
Sure.
had one mention, just remember last year, someone mentioned that in the previous year, one district said one thing that changed their year because of a strategy that they were able to investigate and implement, because one district said something that they caught and they thought, we need to look into that and do that. And it changed their trajectory every year. And that's just the kind of power that comes from that CIO summit room.
One of the other ones we talked about that affects us over the next 12 months is right now in December, we have scheduled the Internet Safety Reg modernization, and that was last done in 1998. It served us well for a long time. And so, one of the questions, do we start getting your feedback on that one, or do we wait a little bit later on to do that? So that one's in the mix too, because that happens over the next 6 to 12 months. So once again, in your chat or just with your K or other ways with our staff and for our districts, just let us know if there's other topics we want to make sure we hit in the CIO Summit. All right, next up is Mr. Chuck Austin giving us our monthly Q's update for our staff here in OET and for our CATS partners and for our districts. So, Chuck.
Well, thank you, David. Great shout out, both you, David, Marty, about the CIO Summit. I mean, once again, it's just a tremendous opportunity. And obviously this topic, the Q's topic, is, fruit of that labor from the community and the input that we received. So just real quick, for all of our EdTech leaders, if you don't already have it, you will be receiving shortly, our monthly CIO agenda that our field staff collaborates on a monthly basis. So I'm going to graze across the tops of the waves when it comes to the overall Q's initiative, because the details will be shared at the regional level. So please just ask everybody to kind of review that, pose any questions you've got, obviously, to your respective CATS engineer, and they can help you with. But let's talk about the 3 big components of the overall Q's initiative. So first of all, on the rapid identity implementation front, cohort 4 is launching. All right, so I know there's a lot of what I'll call pre-enablement activity right now that the KEs are leading as you start to schedule your kickoff meetings. I think it's super important as a reminder that up until the day of your kickoff, when you're assigned enablement lead, your KE is your primary point of contact for any questions you've got, any readiness activities that are necessary. The process is something we've streamlined mightily over the last year to really help, starting with cohort 3 and now into 4 and 5, get off to a good run and go, even in advance of your formal kickoff call with your enablement team. We're going to be piloting federation from Tyler directly to Rapid Identity, probably starting this week. I just found out this morning, which is good. And some also really good news behind the scenes. We'll also have a work stream that we've spun up to start testing Tyler's API. That is something they have made available to us as of recently. So we're going to be kicking the tires and ensuring that the read and write capability we've got of that API is something, it's definitely something that's going to benefit us moving forward, as opposed to the direct database access that we have today, which also means, we're hoping that we can implement cohorts 4 and 5 with Tyler's API, but then we'll have to circle back to, early adopters 1, 2, and 3 to kind of rewire some of that plumbing. But that's all good news. Big shout out and thank you to Tyler, all right, for all of their work behind the scenes, our staff internally that's worked with us to make that happen. Additionally, had a great opportunity just a week ago to meet up with Jim Harold, who's the CEO from Identity Automation, talking about, some strategic planning as we mount this big push for completion of Rapid Identity later this summer. Any resource adjustments, resource adds that we need to make, all right, as we make sure that we successfully get everyone across the finish line with all parts and pieces prior to school starting this fall. Additionally, obviously, I think you should understand this, Identity Automation will have a big presence for a day or so at the CAST event. So make sure you have an opportunity to reach out, touch base with Joanne, Mel, and some of those team members that are going to be there. As we move toward IP services, big shout out to Zach Dean up in Carroll County for being our initial pilot, all right, of that transition over from Active Directory to info blocks, as Zach always does and does well. Zach helps us make sure that the process for both implementing and the documentation works well. And I also know that apparently Zach, as Zach does well, is going to start offering some free consulting statewide. I say that, free, with people that learn how to use some of the reporting tools and the visibility that we make available in info blocks, just as he's done with our firewall services. So big shout out to Zach for all his work. Around Active Directory decommissioning, we're going to have a big push at the CAST event this year. I know that Zach said he'll work for food. I know that John and team is working very closely with Insight to hopefully unveil our readiness guide at the CAST event. And I say unveil, it'll be in draft format, but that's going to be a great pointer to all the activities that not only do at the district level, but our partners are going to be assisting with. Big shout out, to Neil and Rhonda that are helping us organize some events at the CAST conference this year as we engage with the vendor community to make sure they know what's coming, and more importantly, how they can help you as we transition away from that legacy service. Because I will continue to say our overall success is going to be relying upon community support as well as vendor support as we move toward more modern approaches and away from legacy services, which is also, one more time, a big shout out to the community leadership that we're seeing around the state. We've had some great events in Region 1 and 2, and I'm hearing that there's other events that are scheduled in the other regions where districts are assembling and gathering and sharing ideas and concepts on what they're doing and moving away from on-premise Active Directory. So a lot of great work going on right now. 1,000 details that I could go into, David, on status reports, but I'll leave that for updates at the field. How's that sound?
So Chuck, I want to make sure I capture this one with our teammate Tyler Muniz. And this is when you say the difference between a vendor and a partner.
Yes, sir.
Is and of course, for folks that are brand new to us, this is in my 30 plus years, the largest initiative that we've ever done with all these different moving parts. And it positions us well for the next 20 or 30 years. And it does count on some of our key partners like Infinite Campus and Tyler Muniz working with us to make it happen. So I know we were, I just want to give a shout out to our folks here in OET and Tyler for helping make something happen. So Chuck, I don't know if you get up on that. Can you, the API part?
Well, no, and David, I touched on it briefly, the fact.
I didn't hear you say the API, so it's the API part of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, they've made that available to us in the same manner that Infinite Campus has done. And those folks from a technology standpoint understand the importance of that API moving forward. I mean, it's just a more secure cloud-to-cloud level data exchange that's going to serve us well for the future, as well as open doors that we know in future phases of queues allow us to possibly get even more granular, all right, in the data that we see appearing in things like Infinite Campus, as well as we integrate other systems. So it's super, super critical. Big shout out, big thank you.
But I think the shout out too is gone from a cost to a zero cost.
That's an added bonus. Yes.
So it was a pretty significant cost of zero. So I do want to say, I want to thank our folks here that kind of heard me, bring my concern about that into the senior Muniz team and Tyler team, that they came, and this is a partnership we've had for decades to recognize the partnership that we have at Katy, but also with our school districts, with their product line, and how important this is for them. So I want to thank folks for making that happen in a pretty short period of time.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler recognizing that they have a big role in our overall concept of, interoperability and identity and access management. So yeah, absolutely. Hats off.
Thanks. Next up is a GoGuardian implementation in districts, and Matt and Brian, this is an update for a couple reasons. We've implemented it for quite some time, But also the update is we have X districts that were in this flux stage of looking at it for this year and making a determination whether they move or not, which is important to us because we have to financially make a decision on those districts that have, I can't remember the number, 13 or whatever it is, whatever that number is, you don't give me a specific number. They have opted out. Are they going to be part of it next year or not? Because then if they're not, we will not be funding them for the following year. And we got to make sure we let Go Guardian know that. So I'll let you give your update along with where we at with the districts that have not transitioned over.
Sure. So we'll start with those districts first. And the deadline that David's speaking about is we've had to set a deadline of April the 3rd. So Friday, April the 3rd, any district who previously has an exception in place to use a different filtering product will need to let us know if you plan to use Go Guardian in the next fiscal year starting July 1st for all students and staff. And then we need that time between April 3rd and July 1st to finalize all the billing and get all that in place. So this should not come as a surprise to you. Marissa or Aaron, some other folks at Go Guardian have been talking with your districts over the past year leading up until now. So if you want to accelerate those conversations and let us know your decision, please just reach out to your KE and we'll get you in touch with Go Guardian as soon as possible. Otherwise, Marissa and Aaron and others will be reaching out to each of your districts to touch base here in the next couple of weeks to make sure that we have a final head count before April 3rd.
So let me add some parts to that.
Sure.
Obviously, it's something we'll be looking at annually. So let's say this whatever decision you make does not lock you in forever. So if you're part of this, I'm going to say 13, whatever the number is, and you said, I want to do it one more year with this other provider, two things is we're going to assume your exception is the same. You've not made any changes. And I think that's an important part. If you've made changes to your exception, we need to be aware of that. But if it's the same product, same everything, and there's no really changes to your exception, that remains in place and we'll revisit it, in 27. But we need to know, for at least for this year financially, is and so what he's talking about is it takes a while to get everything in place between us and Go Guardian, what the final dollar amount is, get that purchase through, all the purchasing wickets it's got to go through so they get their funding. But we do have a cutoff date, and you understand for that number of districts that's not made the transition. Are you staying with no changes at all with another product besides Go Guardian? Once again, if you made changes, we need to know about it. And if you're wanting it to be included in the following year, we need to know about that financially, because if you don't tell us, we're going to assume that you are not going to need it if you're part of this group of 13 that's asked for this exception.
Yep.
So real quickly, let me add that real quickly, Matt.
Sure.
And David, the way that we're indicating there is if we don't hear anything from them, we'll assume that they've got a current exception currently known or previously known as a waiver. If they have one in place and we don't hear anything different, we'll kind of assume that they're going to continue to want an exception for the following year. I do want to, from a logistics standpoint, we likely will ask that district sign off on a new exception form, and there's kind of some reasons for that. I mean, it'll kind of be pre-completed, if you will, because again, we're expecting no changes from you, but we need that acknowledgement from your district leadership that this is a decision and choice being made to take an exception from the state provided solution that is obviously at no cost to your district. And so the exception process, again, previously known as a waiver process, really is an annual thing that we got to re-up. And so by default, we're going to expect that that's what you're intending to do if we don't hear from you, but you likely will receive something that says, here's what we understand you're doing, and we'll ask for your district leadership to sign off on that you're basically re-upping that exception that you currently have in place.
Mike's a good reason because there's changing of superintendent, CFOs. So I agree with that concept. We didn't really talk about that yesterday, but because of changing of players and maybe financial position of the district, especially if they're in a financial stressful situation, is that would make it like if you're getting something at no cost, why are we spending funds on something beyond that? So I think that's a good point. Thanks for making clarification.
So A couple other quick things, and you don't have to jot these down. As soon as I'm done giving this little update here, I'll send an email out to CIOs, let you all know all of these bullet points because I'm not going to cover everything here. But on February 1st, GoGuardian made a change to how they name each of their releases. So the latest release is 26.1.1.200, which we just finalized last week, which is a version that fixed a Windows sign-on issue tied to rapid identity and also solved a registry error that we saw with just a few machines that had rolled out the previous version, 1.23.1.117. So the newest version, the 26.1, so their new naming scheme uses the year as the first number. So that's why we'll start referring to these as 26 dot. But so that's going to be the latest version you're going to see in org management now. And then I saw that Stella asked a question about DNS. I'll cover that here. Let me see here. Yeah, GoGuardian is still working with 8 districts to finalize the precision DNS filtering testing. That's going well, and they plan on that pilot being wrapped up by the end of February. So we should have an update by the end of February on adding other districts to that. But again, I'll send an email out with quite a few other updates about GoGuardian here momentarily.
Thanks. Our next topic is a couple items in here. Chuck, I know you sent me the agenda for, you'll be covering, our field staff will be covering these in quite depth. We have folks, we have our CATS partners watching this, which are our vendor partners, our state government partners. We have our OET staff, and maybe even our districts that may not be where. I'm always a big believer, if you hear it multiple times, multiple ways, there's a higher percentage of it getting out there and it being retained. So I know there's something going on today with SMTP. I know copper-based phone systems is getting ready to have end of life that we want to make sure folks are aware of. The Trellix, there's an option there for, obviously there's a couple different options for districts that can you continue on with virus protection for the Windows-based machines, which is, getting lower and lower numbers and actually, covered by things of, you can continue on with Trellix, you can get something beyond Trellix, which including even Windows Defender, or you pay for another product. But we're going to cover something with Trellix, a Trellix offer that they have going forward. And then online testing with the SAT is also covered. I saw that in your agenda pretty good. And we're working on a Bob Hackworth poll question that wasn't there. So Bob, I'll let you hit on those. So I'll let you start with SMTP.
So David, I'm going to defer SMTP over to Matt. And before I do, Matt, let me just hit on a couple of those other topics real quick. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, guys. A couple of years ago, the FCC pretty well granted any of your telephony providers the opportunity to retire their copper facilities, okay, which we know are in wide use in a variety of ways. And this is something we've been talking about, at the regional level for a while. Just want to strongly encourage every one of our EdTech leaders to make sure that, and I'm just going to break it down in real simple terms, David, go find the phone bills that you're paying, and there should be a number that you can call and get to the right people to help you understand when your respective telephony providers are going to retire their facilities, okay? Understand what that date is. For some, it may be short term. For some, it may be long term. For some, it may be never. We don't know. There are a wide variety, all right, of small and large telephone companies around the Commonwealth. Just make sure you're touching base with them and you understand what their game plan and roadmap is for retiring those facilities so that you can start making alternate plans, all right, of upgrading or updating your services to something that's modern. We just think it's super critical. We don't want to see anybody get caught having to scramble or potentially lose voice services. So that's just one of those things. We're going to be tracking this at the local level, David, making sure that if you haven't at least followed up with those people that you're doing so, and then briefing your district leadership, all right, on what that game plan is and what you need to do at the local district level to make sure you avoid any disruption of service. That's topic one. We do know that there was a Trellix hosted last Friday.
Chuck, before you go on, we've got
Yes,
a
sir,
poll
Mike.
question. We've got a poll question on the readiness for working with your local telephone providers on copper facilities. So I think that we ought to pull that up and let people be plugging that in as you may continue to talk about these other topics. The other thing I want to just clarify to what you said there is as you work with your local telephone providers, your facilities may already, I mean, you should know this. You want to know this. If you don't know this, this is part of what you want to find out. Your facilities may already be upgraded, converted away from copper infrastructure. So, again, that's part of what you want to understand and know. And if they're not, obviously you want to know, as Chuck spoke to, the game plan by which your local provider is going to be doing those conversions. You don't want to be blindsided that it's going to be, hey, we're going to be changing these things in 2 months, and there's things that you at local district have to do to help accommodate those facilities being changed over and replaced and so forth. So anyway, just wanted to add that, but I did want to make sure we got that poll question out there and allow people to plug into that.
And I would say with the poll question, and once again, I want to emphasize the importance of our district responding to these, is obviously, Chuck, you'll be talking, our field staff be talking about this individual regions, but this poll question gives you a feel across the state where things are at. And I do want to give a shout out to, once again, to Mike Smith for previous discussion on data that was for a legislator. Putting out a quick poll to his districts was incredibly valuable. So do not underestimate the importance of your voice and helping educate folks. And so please, fill this in. I know it's going to be a topic that'll be talked about, but you won't be able to do a regional meeting. Is what is the total across the state approximately? So please take time to do this. We have a couple other poll questions that are part of this. This particular item, well around the SAT we'll be asking, and then the cybersecurity one. So we'll have 3 poll questions as part of this little sequence that we're doing here. Yeah. So Chuck, I'll let you finish up on that.
Yeah, just real quick, guys. Trellix obviously is an existing CATS partner. They hosted an event last Friday for the entire state to attend to understand the offering they are making around endpoint protection. So and obviously this will be discussed at the regional level, just a couple of, I guess, tidbits of wisdom and recommendations as people evaluate the options. All right. Number one, and this falls under, simplify and subtract. I think where companies have cloud offerings, I think that is absolutely something that every district should be considering first to avoid the technical debt and complexity and additional cost of on-premise. Okay, I think that's a no-brainer. Additionally, I think it's super important that as you look at solutions moving forward, please do not, all right, integrate those with on-premise Active Directory as per the previous conversation, because we're going to be decommissioning that service, all right, here over the next several months. And what I would hate to see happen is a district pay a provider for initial setup and implementation and then have to pay again once we pull it out. So leave the cloud and don't try to implement with on-prem would be my 2 recommendations for any solution that you're looking at. So I'm gonna kick it over to Matt real quick, because Matt, I think you had some updates on SMTP Relay.
Let me hit one part though. I thought Mark and Tim talked about this is important with copper and analog line in the chat. Watch out for elevators, security systems, fax lines, just not your traditional voice lines of using those. I think that's really good.
Yep.
Beware. Go ahead, Matt.
Yep. So SMTP Relay, we sent out an email, I guess it was around 9:30, 9:45 this morning. We were going to change the IP addresses this morning at 9 a.m. over to the new, for the new SMTP Relay service. We decided to wait until noon today to do that. That way folks could concentrate on attending the webcast and not be working on something else. But we'll switch those IPs over at noon today, and the old system will remain online until April the 28th. So if you have any issues with SMTP Relay, need help configuring that, or see any, any concerns that we need to be aware of, please reach out to the service desk as soon as possible and let us know those, and then we'll try to help you with those and pivot if we need to. But this is a service, we've had a long-standing SMTP Relay service for years that facilitates the handoff of messages that are generated by different pieces of software, cloud services that gets sent to parents and others. So now we're trying to switch to the latest generation of that and get away from the old legacy system. So if you have any questions on that, just let us know.
Thanks. Who's going to cover the online testing for SAT? I know that's
We'll let Paul speak to that. We'll let Paul speak to that. We have a poll question on that one as well that we can activate. Paul Shoemaker?
Sure. Of course, it's coming up on the assessment window time, so we want to make sure that all our districts are prepared and have their student devices ready to go. We've got a new vendor in College Board and the SAT college admissions testing this year, and we want to just ensure the districts are aware that they have resources available to be able to reach out to College Board if they have technology related questions and how to set up the Blue Book test delivery system. So there is a toll-free number and an email support line or support email system that's available. These are both Kentucky specific. They're not just a pooled resource, so they're just for Kentucky services. And they are attached to this session in the notes. And in the polling question, we want to make sure that you're continuing to work with your DACs, and they're going to be the ones that get the first news from the Office of Assessment and Accountability. So they're going to get the latest and greatest information or any changes that come down the line. So please stay in touch with them. They're going to get anything that may come up, alterations, changes, the latest news, and they're going to be the first line of information. Now, of course, as we get this information, we're going to share that with your KEs to distribute that to you as well. But the DACs are always going to be the first ones to get this info, so please keep that line of communication open with them. And also, as our other testing venues start to open, KSA, CTE testing will be starting up here very shortly. Please make sure you have your other testing, test delivery systems installed and ready so students can start doing their practice sessions and getting familiar with those test delivery systems and getting familiar so they will be ready for their test sessions. David, I'm ready to turn it over.
Thank you, Paul, and appreciate those that are responding. You still have a chance to respond. And obviously, in the summary notes, I'll be shared, but you can also see live what's going on in the chat for that. And I know part of our audience that's joining by the media portal can't see those. We may at the very end that we finish is for those that are still around that want to share those, but we'll share those at some time. But thank you for responding. Bob Hackworth, you added a poll question. If you'd add, bring up, give the ability for Bob's question to be asked and give some background on Bob while you ask that question. You go ahead and launch that.
You bet. So I did have a question I wanted to ask the districts, but honestly, I didn't think it was quite summit worthy at this point, although it may elevate to being more summit worthy in the future. And it's one of those things that, we can put all the technology we want into place, but at the end of the day, as cyber criminals get better and better at maneuvering around the technology we put in place and impacting the people directly, that we really need to level up our folks, via training and make sure that they are able to identify a fish, for example, versus always relying on Outlook or Gmail to identify that fish for them. And so it's super important to me to begin to understand how many districts are using a pretty comprehensive training setup. And then to start having conversations with some of those districts. What are they using? What do they like? What do they don't like? That sort of stuff. Not like we have any sort of money to do anything statewide. I want to make that clear. However, I do think we do need to start learning from all the districts and sharing that information, what works, what doesn't work. And I can work with folks at different levels who may have money and see what we can provide there, both in terms of free and other sorts of training setups. So that was the purpose for this poll question. and really appreciate everyone's feedback on that. And so I'm glad we've got some folks out there who are who have something in place. And again, this is more than just like fishing training, for example, more than just what you would get from just helping people identify fish. This is the whole soup to nuts stuff. Like, are you good with passwords? Do you understand what makes a good one? That sort of thing. One thing I've not asked for here is, are you doing anything for students? You know, that's possible. I know we have some districts who are doing that, but that's not really my focus right at this very moment. So again, also I wanted to make sure that some other topics had a chance to be presented during the summit, not always just a cybersecurity thing. But you know, if it comes back around, I'm always willing to stand up and start moving on that. Thank you all for your time today.
Well, Bob, you do have some potential with this. The highest response is nope.
Yeah.
With 25% yes and 27% planning. So, you know, I'm always flabbergasted by the number of attempted cyber attacks, the rate they're going up from pre-COVID to now. You know, like we were at 4 billion now in a year attempted attacks, and now it's 100, close to
137 billion or more.
Yeah. So
just here, just for us.
K-12. Yeah, Kentucky K-12. Thanks, Bob. And they got some good responses there. On the 24th of March, Kentucky Education Television is restarting their Education Matters show, and they'll be focusing on AI in Kentucky K-12 classrooms. Marty Park, I think you'll be one of the people on that panel with your background. I know we're trying to find who the other panelists will be on there with you. What kind of things will you plan to be talking about during that?
Well, that'll be a fun experience and an exciting opportunity for K through 12. They're likely, and we'll get more information as we move forward. There will be some EdTech leader, some superintendent representation, I'm sure. Definitely folks who have a classroom lens, working through artificial intelligence implementations and opportunities. So that show, Education Matters, is led by the one and only Kelsey Starks, who also is a huge student technology leadership program partner of ours and helps lead one of our award sessions at state championships. So we'll be excited to join that show and have a great discussion about the state of what we refer to, or what we've been referring to as AI in action in Kentucky K-12. David, I think this is a great opportunity to actually mention, you know, the Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology, which you mentioned earlier. The team, the writing team, and the revision team that have been pulled together, huge shout out and high five to Laura Raganos for leading that effort for us. It's time, as we've been talking about, to revise those. To date, in that draft, there are over 80 mentions of artificial intelligence at different grade levels and different grade bands. And so from the standards perspective of what our students should know and be able to do, we're excited about where that fits in from a technology perspective and where we refer to as using technologies, using artificial intelligence. So I guarantee that will be highlighted on that show. That will be fun. Please be on the lookout for the revision survey, the feedback survey. This is the revision is set. The team did an awesome job. We're very efficient, ahead of schedule, I might add. Before the CAST conference, there is an opportunity, and through the CAST conference, to give feedback on those academic standards. So wanted to make sure to plug that and mention that. And then as well, David, if you don't mind, because I think that our students using artificial intelligence in safe, secure, and responsible ways, there's no better way to see that in action than through STLP. And so I'm launching a question right now, a poll question, please respond, that really gets at our creative digital arts. So that cycle is well underway, and we are expecting, actually our judges were to have scores back by last Friday. We're working through to make sure that all student products were judged, and you should be receiving those scores within the week. Don't want to put too much pressure on the team, but those will be right in front of you before too long. The awesome part about that is through our creative visual arts, you get to see technology in action. You get to see student demonstration of learning through product. And we also get to see artificial intelligence and how that is being used and leveraged in student product and learning. So thank you, David, for that opportunity.
I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. I did want to close on recognizing someone that we recently lost. His name's Tom Shelton. Tom was around my age, and I guess that shakes you up when you lose someone that's in your age, still a big part of life. Tom was a great champion and advocate for Kentucky K-12 public education and all the different roles that he played. He was chief financial officer and superintendent for many years in Davis County. And then in Fayette County, he was the executive director of the Kentucky Association of Superintendents. And then most recently, he's been the CEO of the United Way of the Bluegrass, which does food banks, helps with student literacy, helps out with disaster relief, job training, and finance education. But I do want to mention, Tom, you don't ever forget someone that came through for you in the clutch. And so in our early stages of implementing Munis, the legislature asked me to present, this standardized system that we're doing across the state. We were the first state, as you know, to do a lot of things and pioneers in it. And a standardized financial management system was one of those, and it still remains today. But I needed a district and a person with credibility to talk about the advantages of a district having a standardized off-the-shelf system, and also having that statewide as people came and go between Kentucky districts. And the person that I selected to do that was Tom Shelton, and I asked him, and he immediately accepted that. And he was absolutely fantastic during that presentation and really calmed down the pushback that we were getting from certain districts of standardizing on a financial management system versus staying with some things that they had in place. And so I did want to recognize Tom and kept a relationship with them from that time in all the different roles. And that's a big loss for here in Kentucky, but I didn't want to remember him this way. So rest in peace, Tom. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next month.